Well, there it is. Witty here. Welcome, guys, to a quick review of Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. So, initial non-spoiler stuff. It's a good movie. You will definitely enjoy it if you are familiar with the Star Wars saga, especially if you've watched the previous two films, recent ones. It helps to tie up a lot of the loose ends that may have got a bit, lost all over the place due to the previous film, most definitely. And even from the first film, there were some questions to be asked, and there's a lot of answers in this film. So if you're looking for some closure, you're probably going to get that. So I don't like to divulge too far into the non-spoiler section because I feel like almost anything you talk about can be regarded as a spoiler these days. So the first initial point is it's a good movie. You'll enjoy it if you're familiar with Star Wars. If you're not familiar with Star Wars, there's adventure in there. There's some space battles. There's some sword fighting, medieval style with laser swords. But, it's still kind of like, medieval style in that sense of knight versus knight, if you think of it this way. Um, if you like those things, you can still get something from it. But I don't think you would get much if you weren't invested in this Star Wars series because it does a lot to try to answer the questions from the previous films. So if you've not seen any of this stuff before, you're going to be just like, what the heck is going on? Like if you've got someone next to you, you're probably going to say, who's they? What's going on here? Why is that ship like that? You're just going to be asking questions non-stop. So probably best not to see it otherwise in that case. But right, spoiler section. So I feel like the first 10 to 15 minutes, I just got back, by the way. I just want to do a quick review whilst I can try to remember anything. And even then, you do forget things, as you see. But they try to spend the first 10 to 15 minutes basically apologizing for the previous film. That's how it felt for me. I don't know. You guys let me know. If you've seen this film, what do you think? Whether I'm on the ball here or whether I'm completely offbeat, I don't know. But the way I see it, there's like initially just, there's the original Star Wars sounds, though it's just like, hey, Star Wars is back. We're going to try to bring it back on track. So there was that right off the gate with the spaceships. And then there's sort of lots of almost apologies in a weird way. Like I've forgotten a lot of the things I was going to say, unfortunately, because I was trying to remember it, keep it all in my head as I was watching the movie. But obviously, as the movie goes on, you forget things. But generally speaking, do you think it felt like they spent the first 10 to 15 minutes kind of apologizing for the previous stuff? Because it was just like, okay, this comes later on in the film, but this is still like a note on the same path of what I'm trying to say is Rey was about to throw I think it was Luke's, lightsaber into the fire with the ship that she was burning. And then, Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker, grabs it and says, show some respect, which is like a dig on the previous film, which was like a complete lack of disrespect as he threw it away. So I feel like J.J. Abrams, who directed this, gave him a bit of a chance for Mark Hamill to shine a bit more in this, which I was happy to see because I feel like he deserved it the most to sort of like be a bit more happy and cheery and more positive, which is what Luke Skywalker's character really was, as opposed to the horrible character he was in the second film of this kind of new trilogy. There's great characters, I think. Even Harrison Ford came back, and as soon as I saw that, I was thinking, I wonder how much they paid him to come back. I thought he did a good job for the little bit he had. It was nice to see him again. I got no qualms seeing Harrison Ford. I actually like him very much as an actor, but I know he's very much likes his money, and he pretty much only wants to do a job to, fulfill that job, to get that money, so to speak, more than it is to, I'll do it for free just because I want to be part of it. It's like, what are you going to give me? So I was kind of like, ugh. And the Carrie Fisher bits were great. I think that's why they were more confident going into this film, at least after what unfortunately happened with Carrie Fisher. Obviously, her passing away, if you weren't aware. They must have shot a lot of the scenes because it didn't look very superimposed, much of it. Only one little bit in the future where they're showing like a past of her apparently practicing with Luke, which I thought was a bit odd, sort of like at a sort of fight in the jungle. They were having a little lightsaber fight and she sort of bested him. It's like, okay, fair, all right, I guess she learnt that. But there's the whole issue of Rey being too powerful. They kind of explain that in the end, but I want to save that for the last bit because that's basically the last part of the movie. So they talk about your parents were no one, but she's the granddaughter of Palpatine, and as we know, Kylo Ren is the son of Carrie Fisher. So there's that kind of connection that they still have to the original trilogies. This comes through a bit more obvious with Rey when she's trying to control a ship, and then some lightning comes out of her fingers, and you think, oh, okay. So they're doing a lot to just basically say, this is this person, this is this. So you remember all those questions you had from the previous movies, or why the hell any of this happened in the second movie? Well, we'll try our best to sort of, put the piece together. It might be a bit misshapen, but plot-wise, it kind of makes sense. That's what I was wondering, like how much of this was really fleshed out from like the beginning, or how much, because I would love to give them lots of credit and say, oh, this is quite genius having Palpatine in control the whole time, and Snoke was just a puppet. He literally just created him just to sort of like develop the story and put the pieces in motion, like a chess player, a master chess player, just putting the pawns in places, and the bishops, etc., just sort of like getting all of this stuff under control just to set up for the final finale. I thought that was great if that was all sort of pre-designed, but I can't help but wonder how much of this was actually like, but if we do this, that would explain, what we basically messed up in the original stuff. So you might know what I'm talking about if you've seen the other two films. Sort of like, how much of this did they actually sort of really, really think through? Like, how much of this storyline? Because they had the Knights of Ren, but they weren't really that big a part of it. So they were a really big deal in the first part, and then you kind of see Kylo Ren fighting them, I think, from the first film. I'm going to call it the first film because I'm just looking at this trilogy by itself to a degree. And that was cool. But there wasn't really that much of a closure to that, I guess. It was just, they're just some cool characters that fight. But I don't know. I don't think there was that much to them, actually. When I think about it even more now, it's just like, what really became of that? But he was fighting them in the fission. So it's like, why was he fighting them? And then they kind of tied that up. So I don't know I don't think that was really pre-thought out. All right. So I think it was very nice, as I was saying, to see sort of like the original characters. You got Lando, Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, Mark Hamill, there's a lot of cool characters. And of course, Palpatine, I thought that was really good that they sort of brought him back to sort of pay homage to him. If it was up to me, he would win. I mean, I'm just going to say, I seem to watch a lot of movies these days, and I almost always want the bad guy to win. So I don't know if I'm like, there's something wrong with me or something, but it's how I feel. Like, I was watching, I'm just trying to think of anything else I kind of missed out. All right, okay, I'll go over some things that I actually did also like. They practice in the previous films this kind of, you're here, I'm here, but we're interacting with one another despite being millions of miles away or hundreds of thousands of miles away. We still got this connectivity, and they kind of nailed it in this film, the practice from the previous episodes, where Kylo and Rey are, sort of like interacting with one another, and they're fighting, and then they slice through, and a pot on their side, on Kylo's side, like breaks, and then he slices through, and his sort of pole or whatever it's called, like the stand holding up Darth Vader's mask, sort of like falls down, and the rubble comes onto his area where he's actually standing, and he goes, so that's where you are. So I thought they kind of nailed that. Like the visual graphics and all of that were pretty much nailed throughout. Like the settings, the scenes, the space stuff, it was very, very good. You would expect it to be so, though, because of the budget behind it. But you can't really fault them for that and say, you had a massive budget, so you can't get it wrong. But you got to appreciate it when they do still get it right. And they did. I felt like a lot of it felt very flawless, seamless. Like when they were inside of like I think it was one of the Star Destroyers. I think Rey was in there. And I just thought the scenery, the background, I was looking at the background and all this stuff, like the door panels, like the sort of shiny surface floor, how far it went back, all the corridors. I was like appreciating all of that part of it, because it's sort of like you start to theory craft a bit. What would it be like to live in that ship and how it would actually look? And it was kind of like more futuristic. It was more sort of polished, shiny, sort of nice. I thought that was very cool. I always appreciate that. So I think that's most of the stuff I can think of that would cover the early parts of the film. This is quite sporadic because I don't really do this jump cutting stuff where I just keep in the bits where I talk correctly. I'm just keeping the whole thing in. So, final part. I'm happy that all the characters are in there. They all got their chance to shine, all the original actors that contributed. I think that was great. Now, Palpatine versus Rey. It's basically he I'm not sure really about this lore-wise or story-wise. I didn't feel like that held up very well, but you can let me know whether that's the case in the books or the magazines or whatever other lore there is for Star Wars, because I don't particularly follow it. But he's got all the power of the previous Sith, and she's got all the power of the previous Jedis. So there's your closure to saying, answering that question of, oh, why is she so powerful? How is she able to do all these things? Oh, well, she's got all this knowledge and strength and stuff like that from the previous Jedi. So it's like, oh, okay, that kind of explains the Mary Sue part, because I got no problem with her being super powerful as long as she earns it. That's the problem that Hollywood is making a lot with these movies, is like these women are sort of like super powerful, like the Brie Larson from like Captain Marvel. It's just like they don't earn it. They don't do anything to earn it. So you can be incredibly powerful. I got no qualms with that whatsoever, but fucking earn it. Just let us get behind you and say, yes, you deserve that. Yes, you. So they did a bit more in this film where they actually showed her training. So that was a bit better, but that's what kind of what I was meaning in regards to the apology stuff. It's not just the first 15 minutes. It does happen throughout the film where you feel like, they're doing this almost like this scene is purely just to say, remember when the fans said that, why is, this happening, or why is she doing that? Now here's some of an answer. Whether this was intentional, whether they was always originally going to put her training in the third film, I don't think so. I feel like it was just there just to say, sorry, yeah, here's her training now. This can help explain why she's so good. You know what I mean? I still don't buy it. Like she steals like this boat to sort of like sail to the Emperor's sort of lair, and there's these tidal waves and all this. She's never rode a boat in her life. Like, maybe she can pick one up and, like, if she was on calmer waters, but these are like the most hostile waters that even the most expert boatmen or boat women out there in the universe, in the world, would have a really hard time navigating, with years of experience knowing how the waves and all of that work. And she's just out there sort of casually dealing with this. Like maybe you'll be quick with a lightsaber and you've got natural reflexes, but you're not going to know mechanically how everything works, surely? That's the problem people had with like just flying a ship better than Harrison Ford did when he was known to be very good at it. Because he earned it, He learned how to do it. She's just like, oh, well, I can fly this ship now. It's like, downloaded. She's not even downloading. She just knows it somehow. Anyway, so she's got all the power of the Jedi. Palpatine's got all the power of the Sith. And I could almost buy that she would beat him if it wasn't for what he did before they kind of fought. He nailed them basically, steals the life force out of them. And then that's powerful enough as it is. But then he points his fingers up into the sky and chain lightnings about 100 to thousands of ships at the same time, destroying them. And you're telling me that he's going to lose? Because you go, okay, no, maybe she beats him in another way. But then when she goes to engage versus him, he then points towards her. And he only conducts about a fraction, like a hundredth of the power that he used lightning-wise against her. And I'm like, now, hang on a second. If you're going to point your fucking fingers into the sky and like light up the sky and just make almost the entire planet just convulse with lightning, I don't think, no matter how powerful she is or that lightsaber, she's going to be able to stand there and be able to take all of that energy. I mean, I just look at things almost too logically, or we know how science works and conduction and stuff like that. Some of it can be absorbed, sure, but that much... I don't know. What, she got Tesla coils next to her or something? Is that what the lightsaber is? Again, all he has to do is he's got two hands. Point one at her head, point one at her feet. Lightsaber's not going to be able to cover both of those. So then you might say, okay, maybe the lightsaber sort of absorbs and the lightning goes towards into the lightsaber. Okay, maybe that's a bit of a cop-out answer, but that might answer it. I don't know. I just feel like with that much power that he had, you would just melt the lightsaber. You would melt everything. But, you feel free to say where I'm wrong here, because I don't know. I don't buy it. That's why I kind of always get behind the bad guy. I don't necessarily want the bad guy to win, but I look at the situation, and that's what makes me think, like the whole Thanos thing. Thanos won. That's why I like the Infinity War, because I treated that as its own movie. Thanos won. That was it. Like, game over. They only had to make the next movie because you can't have the villain win, because it's a movie business, and the good guys have to win because the good films are about the good guys. But basically, Thanos won. Like, you wouldn't beat him. And that's kind of, unfortunately, the same issue I had with the end of this film. It's just like, I'm fine with Rey winning as long as she earns it, but she can't. Not when you just showed me what he could just do a moment before that fight. You guys have got to let me know if I'm wrong here or something, but that's just how it felt to me. Film was good, though. It was so much better than the second one. So if that's your problem going in, much better than the second one. J.J. Abrams helps to bring it back. And he does actually a good job of answering a lot of questions, which he's famous for. He's famous for setting up questions, but not answering them. Lost being one of the cases. But I think he did a good job, as best as he could in many cases, to just say, that thing that we mentioned earlier, here's the reason why. Like I said, it's sort of like, it doesn't necessarily fit perfect. It's not a perfect square. It's a little misshapen, but you can kind of force the jigsaw puzzle in there and still make it work. So you guys let me know. Thank you very much for watching. It's been my review of Star Wars Rise of the Skywalkers. I don't think they're going to do any more after this. If they do, it's going to be like 10, 15 years into the future. But they kind of tied everything up to the degree of saying, where do you go from here? Because where's the Sith? If Palpatine, and you're not going to get more powerful than him. I was like, oh yeah, he's the big guy. This is why, again, I don't think he would have lost, because he's like super powerful. But anyway, unlimited power. You have her burying the lightsabers at the end, and this old lady just freaking ninja stealth pulls her, and she's just like aggroes her. It's like, hey, who are you? And it's just like so forced. Oh, I'm a Skywalker, I guess. It's just like, where the fuck did this old lady come from with this camel? How the fuck did she stealth in there? So now I'm thinking there actually might be more to that, and it's not just an innocent old lady. I think it's a Sith, and the Sith just saw where she buried the lightsabers. So now that's how they're going to continue the movie. Because that old lady is not a nice old lady. She's an evil old Sith lady. Otherwise, how the hell else did she sneak up on her? Where the did she come from? It's a freaking desert. Just casually turn up in like this one random location on a fucking camel. And she even says like, oh, no one comes around here. What the fuck are you doing here at this exact point in time when someone actually has turned up? There's a lot of that going on in the movie as well. People just being in the right place at the right time, or having the right item, the right gift to allow a ship to go past and park into a Starship Destroyer. I mean, if that didn't get mentioned like 10 minutes before it happened, then what the fuck would they would have done? So there's a lot of that stuff going on. So again, if I try to think about things too much, it's going to annoy me. So I'm still in like, just came from the movie. I'm a lot more enlightened to it. I'll look forward to seeing other reviews, better reviews than what I can do by a long shot, where they actually analyze the film. But people tend to use the whole movie and they go through it bit by bit, scene by scene. That's what I'll notice from reviews. It's a better way to do it, and it's an easier way to do it, because you can analyze each scene bit by bit and truly look at it, and then you start to see all the cracks. But when you just come from the movie and you've only seen it once and you've got to memorize it all in your head, yeah, this is what I come back with. But yeah, as I'm starting to think about it, so I'm going to stop thinking about it. I'm just going to end it now. Thank you guys. Have a good one. Take care. Bye-bye.